Today was Josie's engagement party. I pulled out the silver gray dress I'd pressed the night before from the walk-in closet. As I got dressed, I mentally ran through my checklist. Ring, contract, card. Nothing could be forgotten. In the kitchen, as the kettle warmed on the stove, I instinctively opened the black velvet box resting on the dining table. Inside, the emerald ring lay quietly. It was my mother's wedding ring, passed down to me. I wore it into marriage and years later took it off as I walked out. For decades I've kept it nestled in that silk-lined box, never one to show it lightly. I wanted Josie to have it, today. Alongside it I'd prepared the property documents. A 2-bedroom condo near the water in Santa Monica, the balcony offering a glimpse of the ocean. I thought it made a fine engagement gift, even if, truth be told, I'd never taken to Jasper. I first met him at Josie's birthday dinner. That night he was well-dressed, overly polite, flashing too many smiles. He said he worked at a high-end bar and something about the way he talked about his connected clientele rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't care for the slippery kind of respect he tried to show me either. But Josie, when she looked at him, she lit up. She smiled in that way that softened her whole face, rested her head on his shoulder like the world couldn't touch her. It stunned me into silence. She looked just like I did when I fell in love for the first time. That scared me. But it also shut me up. What was I supposed to say? She was 28, grown. Any protest would only drive her further away. I hadn't asked much of her over the years. I wanted to give her freedom and, if I'm honest, to make up for not being around enough when she was little. We divorced when she was 12. After that, I became the only adult she could truly count on. I juggled a growing career while learning to be a reliable mom. I picked her up from school, went to every parent-teacher meeting, taught her to ride a bike, made chicken soup when she caught a cold. I organized our life into something steady, something safe, so she wouldn't feel the hole her father left behind. She used to say, "Mom, you're amazing. I never worry about anything." I just smile and pat her head. I never told her I lost sleep worrying all the time. But lately she's been different. Less easy to read. I remember the day she told me she wanted a slightly more formal engagement party. I even offered to cover the cost. She laughed and said thank you, then teased, "Mom, you're always so eager." I know she was joking. But that word, eager, caught me off guard. So today, when I packed the ring and the condo paperwork into my bag, I felt a small tremor of unease. Not regret. Just that familiar tension of knowing you've done everything right, and still fearing something might go wrong. I stepped into the study and checked the property documents again. Josie's name was already written in. Jasper's was still blank. I figured if she looked me in the eye and said, "He's the one I want to spend my life with," then I'd sign without a second thought. This wasn't blind approval. I just wanted to be her foundation when she took this leap. I finished getting dressed. Same silver gray gown, elegant but understated, nothing to pull attention from her, yet respectable enough for the occasion. I spritzed on a bit of perfume and looked at myself in the mirror. There were lines at the corners of my eyes now, but something gentler in the curve of my mouth. I picked up my purse. Inside was the ring, the contract, a handwritten card, and a small gift I'd picked out just for the two of them. The 3-inch heels by the door wobbled slightly when I stepped into them, so I wore them. Today was her big day. I had to show up as her mother, and as someone who belonged in the front row. Before heading downstairs, I grabbed the old photo stuck to the fridge door. It was a handprint Josie made when she was 7, with the words, "Thankful for Mom," scribbled in crooked letters. I wasn't sure if she even remembered it, but I did. I slid it gently into the innermost pocket of my purse, tucked beneath the velvet ring box. The moment I turned the key in the ignition, an odd feeling came over me. Like a breeze stirring the air, chill-less but unsettling. Like tears welling up, not from sadness but something heavier. I told myself, she will be happy. She'll understand the meaning behind all this, even if she can't find the words for it today. As the car pulled out of the driveway, I didn't look back at the house. I was already focused on arriving early, checking the setup, saying my hellos, and standing behind her when she needed me. Just like I had for the past 2 decades and change. I arrived half an hour early. The venue was already being set up. From the parking lot, I could see a custom banner hung above the entrance. "Josie and Jasper forever begins today." Written in blush gold script that shimmered just enough to make my eyes squint. It was a rented space, the second floor of a wine club with a terrace. Lively, buzzing, already crowded. I stepped in with the small gift box in hand, instantly surrounded by the scent of roses and champagne. Josie stood at the center wearing a blush satin gown. Her hair was swept behind her ears in soft waves, her smile bright and effortless. Seeing her, my first thought was still, how beautiful. More striking than I ever was at her age. She had that modern kind of confidence, the kind that fills a room. I was about to walk up when she was swept into a circle of friends offering toasts, not noticing me. Jasper saw me first and made his way over from the bar. "Mary," he said, arms open like I was royalty. "You look incredible today." I gave him a polite smile. "Hello, Jasper." He reached for my bag, but his fingers paused when they brushed the gift box. "And this is a gift for you both," I said mildly. His brows lifted. "That's so thoughtful." He led me to a side table in the corner, where unopened presents and paper cups were clustered. Without much ceremony, he set the box down, then turned and called out, "Josie, your mom's here." Josie glanced over. Her smile flickered, just for a second, before she shifted into a poised, camera-ready expression. "Mom, you made it." She walked over and gave me a quick, perfunctory hug. Before I could say a word, she pulled a young woman in a nude spaghetti strap dress into the frame. "This is Rose, my college roommate. She's a fashion editor in New York now." I nodded toward Rose, but Josie had already turned to greet someone else offering a toast. I stood there for a moment, collecting my face. Not sad exactly. Just thrown off. In that brief introduction, she hadn't said I was her mother. But she made sure to say what Rose did for a living. I was just about to move farther into the room when I heard her voice again. "Mom, can you top off the champagne?" I turned. She was waving at me with one hand, holding an empty flute in the other, smiling like we'd rehearsed this a dozen times. I blinked, then instinctively took the glass and walked toward the bar. The bartender gave me a knowing wink. "Big crowd today." "Yeah," I nodded, keeping my tone level. I took the refilled glass and turned to go back, only to hear another call from the far side of the room. "Hey, that table's kind of messy, mind wiping it down? We need it for photos." It was one of Josie's friends this time, a young woman I didn't recognize, perched casually on the arm of the sofa. She pointed toward the table by the window, her tone light but edged with an entitled ease that left no room for a no. I walked over. There were indeed a few water rings on the surface. I grabbed a napkin and wiped them clean. Just as I set it down, someone nearby chuckled and said, "Your daughter's so lucky to have a mom who's this helpful." I gave a polite smile and said nothing. The laughter dissolved into other conversations, and I suddenly felt like a venue attendant, hovering outside every circle belonging to none. Rose passed by and tossed a comment over her shoulder. Jasper's side really brought a crowd. "They're interesting, huh?" I followed her gaze. A group of women in flashy outfits and heavy perfume were swarming Jasper, chirping away. He looked perfectly at home, effortlessly charming, like he was born to perform for a crowd. And I felt like a backstage intruder who wasn't supposed to see the show. Josie came toward me, holding a glass of wine in one hand and a dessert plate in the other. "Mom, the cake's here. Can you set it up somewhere it doesn't block the signature board?" Her tone was breezy, like she was instructing an event volunteer. I took the plate and moved it as directed. Just as I turned to leave, someone stepped close. A distant cousin, her voice lowered. "You're not mad?" I smiled faintly. "It's her day. I don't want to ruin it." She frowned, said nothing, and walked off to get a drink. I stayed there for a moment, resting my hand on the edge of the table, suddenly aware of how cold the tablecloth felt. Josie was laughing loudly nearby. The kind of laugh that felt too perfect, too rehearsed. I knew that laugh. It was the same one I wore when I worked PR. The everything's fine face for the crowd. And then I remembered. The heirloom ring was still in my purse. The property contract too. They were meant to be given to her tonight. But now I hesitated. At first I'd brushed off the little requests. She was probably just flustered, caught up in the chaos of the party. But by 7 p.m. the crowd had grown thicker and those requests had become constant, careless, thoughtless, and increasingly transparent. I had just finished setting out the cake when someone called out, "Hey Josie, is your mom still around? Could she grab some cocktail napkins?" Josie, champagne flute in hand, smiled from across the room. She's great at this stuff." Always knows how to take care of people. Just ask her. He didn't look back. She just said it like I was part of the catering team, as if my role at this event was a given. I didn't move. But not 30 seconds later, one of Jasper's friends, a woman in a skin-tight sequin dress, walked over and waved her empty plate at me. "You're with the drinks, right? Can I get another Moscato?" I blinked, caught off guard. Before I could respond, Josie appeared beside me, smiling like nothing was out of place. She was holding a tray full of champagne glasses. "Mom," she said brightly, "these are for Jasper's friends. Can you run them over there? They're kind of stuck in the back corner, too crowded." I took the tray without thinking. The chilled glasses clinked against each other. I remembered the last time I walked like this, 20 years ago at a product launch I organized. Only then I wore a tailored suit. I was the host, not the help. She didn't even register my silence. She just laughed and added, "You've always had steadier hands than me, don't spill." People laughed. I couldn't tell who started it, but the laughter was the kind that sounded light. Too light. The kind that sits on top of a soft insult and calls it affection. I carried the tray through the crowd toward Jasper's circle. Most of them were his old bar co-workers. Loud, theatrical, thriving on spectacle. One girl, barely 20, took a glass and winked at me. "Your daughter's party is so cool. Even the service staff's high-end." I didn't answer. I just smiled. And I smiled for so long my cheeks began to go numb. On my way back, I caught Rose standing by the window, glancing in my direction. Her expression was awkward, her eyes trying not to meet mine, but failing. I gave her a small nod. One of the only gestures that night that came from somewhere real. I sat down in a nearby chair, hoping to rest for a moment. But almost immediately someone approached, handing me a small stack of plates. "You seem to know how things are run here. Where should the desserts go?" The way she said, "You seem to know," was casual, like I'd been part of the catering team from the start. Before I could respond, a voice cut in. "That's enough." It was my distant cousin stepping out from a corner, looking straight at Josie. "She's her mother. Not the staff." Josie froze. Her smile stiffened, barely catching the pause. "Oh, come on," she laughed, looping her arm through the woman's like it was all a silly misunderstanding. "Don't be so serious. My mom loves helping out at these things. She's amazing at it. She used to plan all my birthday parties herself when I was a kid." She said it lightly, cheerfully. But her eyes never met mine. I felt my fingers tightening around the edge of my purse until my knuckles went white. I knew she didn't mean harm. But it was that unthinking ease, the way she deployed me like a reliable utility. Not a mother. Just a tool that happened to work well. I stood up and said softly, "I need some air." No one stopped me. No one followed. I stepped out onto the second-floor terrace, the wind lifting the hem of my dress. I opened my purse. The black velvet box sat quietly inside, untouched. I took the ring out and held it in my palm. It was cold. Like the night air, sharp enough to sober me. I thought of myself that morning. Choosing the right dress, triple-checking the documents, tucking in that card I'd handwritten. "Mom is proud of you." I had always believed that if I just acted warm enough, thoughtful enough, I could become the one person in her life worthy of deep respect. But right there in that moment I saw it clearly. Maybe to her I'd always just been the backup plan. The ever-reliable, always available plan B. I took a deep breath, slipped the ring back into its box and shoved it to the bottom of my purse. Pressed it down. Tight. I didn't cry. I didn't fume. I just sat watching the sky turn darker, while a thought slowly took shape inside me. Enough. I don't remember how long I stayed on that terrace. Only that when the wind numbed the tops of my hands, I finally looked down and saw I was still clutching the ring box. Inside, the party raged on. Lights spilled from the tall windows, music and laughter blurred together into something warm and hollow. But I knew that celebration had no room for me. I stood, tucked the box back in my bag. In that moment, it felt like a ceremony. Not an exit. A reclamation. I walked downstairs. Didn't tell anyone. Quietly got in my car and drove home. It was 11:30 when the garage door rumbled shut behind me, echoing through the empty house. I changed out of my dress, wiped off my makeup and placed the purse on the desk in my study. The ring box was still inside. I didn't take it out. Just stared at it for a while. The living room was silent. I poured a bit of bourbon into a glass. No ice. Took a sip. The burn hit hard, sliding down my throat. And for the first time I asked myself, in this mother-daughter story, have I truly been loving her? Or have I been trying to atone? I thought back to when Josie was 12, the first real fight we had. She wanted to spend the summer in Europe and I couldn't promise it. I had just been assigned to a major crisis PR case. I was working 15-hour days, barely breathing. When I said no, she slammed her bedroom door and didn't speak to me for 3 full days. I thought it was just adolescence. Now I wonder, maybe that was the moment we first went off balance. After that, I bent over backwards trying to make it right. Scared always that one day she'd turn around and decide I'd failed her. I sent her to the best schools. Bought her first car. Even covered the credit card debt from her failed business at 22. She never once asked if I wanted any of it. I accepted her dependence. I tolerated her taking. I told myself it was love. But tonight, standing in a room full of strangers with a tray of champagne in my hands, mistaken for the staff, while my daughter smiled and said nothing, that was when I finally saw it clearly. I had been formatted right out of this relationship. I wasn't her mother anymore. I was a resource. A piece of her life's operating system she could tap as needed. The phone rang as I was flipping through the property documents. The screen lit up with Braden, a longtime friend and an attorney I trusted. I hesitated, then picked up. "You're still up?" he asked, sounding a little surprised. "Just got home." I set my glass down and sank back into the couch. "How was the party?" He paused as if realizing how shallow that sounded. "You holding up okay?" I waited a few beats, then quietly said, "Braden, I think I finally realized something tonight. Maybe I've been doing something foolish for the last 15 years. "What's that?" "Turning love into an obligation. Like it's some project I have to keep delivering on." There was a silence on his end before he said gently, "Mary, you're not the only mother who's made that mistake." I let out a faint laugh. I didn't expect it to be so obvious. She let her friends call me a waitress. Had me wiping tables and handing out champagne. Said I was great at that kind of thing. In front of everyone. Braden muttered something under his breath. Then more clearly, "That's not just emotional. Mary, you need to protect yourself." "I know." I glanced at the folder on the table. "I've decided not to give her the house. And I'm keeping the ring." Saying it out loud felt easy. Not like a fight. More like exhaling after holding your breath too long. "It's not to punish her," I added. "It's just, for the first time I'm drawing a boundary. Not as her mother. Just as me." He didn't answer right away. Braden rarely gave praise easily, but I heard the sound of a long breath on the other end. "That might be the smartest thing you've ever done." "You know," I said, looking up at the soft glow of the study lamp, "I was planning to hand her the documents tonight. I was going to say, 'Welcome to your new life.' But now I think, she's not ready for a life that comes with real responsibility." I heard him shuffling papers like he was listening while making mental notes. "If you're thinking of changing your estate plans, I can take a look at the documents." "Not just yet," I said quietly. "First, I need to sort through how I feel. Tonight was a wake-up call. I'm done cleaning up after her." Braden didn't say much, just let out a short, amused breath. A clean sound. Almost a laugh. "So how late are you staying up tonight?" he asked. "Just a little while longer." After we hung up, I sat there with my hand resting on the arm of the couch. My eyes drifted to the drawer where I'd tucked the card back in. "Mom is proud of you." The words looked different now. Not a lie. But no longer the whole truth either. I wasn't not proud of her. I just finally wanted to be proud of myself too. The next morning, I had just poured my first cup of black coffee when my phone rang. Josie's name lit up the screen. I hesitated for a second, then answered. "Mom," she said immediately, voice etched with irritation. "When did you leave last night?" "Around 8, I replied, calm and even. It was getting crowded. I didn't want to interrupt. There was a pause. Then she cut straight to it. "I didn't see the ring." I took a sip of coffee, sat down at the kitchen island. "I brought it," I said plainly. "But I decided not to give it." She went silent for a beat, then let out a soft, disbelieving laugh. "Why? You said you were ready." I said if everything went well, I would hand it over. I set the mug down. "What I saw last night didn't feel right." "You mean the champagne thing?" Her voice rose, defensive. "You know that was just chaos. I didn't mean anything by it. It wasn't just that, I said. It was how you treated me. All night. Her breathing quickened. Are you seriously holding that against me? Mom, I'm 28. What, do you want me to cling to you like a 10-year-old at my own party? I never asked you to cling, I said, tone steady. I asked for basic respect. She didn't respond right away. I knew that silence. She was picking her next words carefully. I didn't respond. Her question lingered in the air like a challenge, but I stayed still, my silence louder than any words. Josie scoffed, almost incredulous. So this is punishment, isn't it? You had everything ready, the house, the ring, and now you say nothing. It's not punishment, I said, my tone even sharper than hers. It's a boundary. I looked her straight in the eye. I've spent too many years forgetting where I end and you begin. She let out a bitter laugh. So now you're going through some self-discovery phase? You do realize Jasper and I already talked to the realtor, right? We were just waiting for you to say yes. I know. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut clean. I won't be saying yes anymore. Her composure cracked. You promised me. You said I could have the ring. You said it. And I said that only if it still felt right. The silence on the other end was sudden and heavy. Then she said coldly, then maybe it's time we redefine what we are to each other. Maybe we should have done that a long time ago, I replied. She hung up. I didn't put the phone down right away. I just stared at the black screen. My hand didn't tremble. My pulse didn't race. If anything, a strange calm was rising, quiet and certain. 10 minutes later, a new text came in. Josie, Jasper wants to talk. We'll come by at 7. I didn't answer. At 7:05, the doorbell rang. I was already seated on the living room sofa. There were 3 empty glasses on the coffee table. No tea, no pretense. Tonight, I wasn't offering comfort. The door opened. Josie stepped in first, her smile even stiffer than the night before. Like nothing had happened that morning. Hi, Mom, she said, placing her purse down. Jasper has something he'd like to ask. Jasper followed, every bit the polished professional. Tailored suit, polished shoes, slicked back hair. He sat down, folded his hands over his knees, wearing that "we're here to discuss important matters" face that almost made me laugh. Mary, he began, voice low and serious, eyes trying too hard to look sincere. We understand you were upset last night. Really, we do. But we hope you'll think about this from a long-term perspective. I stared at him, expression blank. He went on, about the house. We've already spoken to an agent, even lined up a contractor for the remodel. If you pull out now, it puts us in a very difficult position. Josie chimed in, her tone sharper. You know the market's rising. We were counting on closing this month. I finally spoke. You don't have a house problem. You have an entitlement problem. You both walked in assuming the house was already yours. Like I was just the ATM to get it all moving. Josie's eyes narrowed. You've always said you just wanted me to be happy. Well, I am happy now. I've found someone I want to build a life with. And just when it matters most, you back out. Do you know we already told the agent you'd cover the down payment? Her voice tightened. You're pulling out over a few jokes? You're really doing this? I answered quietly, it's not about the jokes. Her face darkened. She laughed, sharp and humorless. So that's your definition of respect? You want me to stand in front of everyone and announce, oops, my mom changed her mind? Jasper jumped in. This wasn't us asking for something new. We were just following the plan you laid out. The plan, I said, was made when I still felt like I was being treated like your mother. Not your asset manager. I turned to Josie. She gave me a look full of contempt. Respect? You think you respected me growing up? You were always working, late nights, never home. When it stormed and the power went out, I'd be under the covers scared out of my mind. Where were you then? Her voice rose with every word. And now what? You've discovered boundaries? You think it makes you some hero? You really believe holding back gifts is going to teach me some profound lesson? Then came the explosion. You always wave that "I'm your mother" card around like it's worth something. Well, guess what? It's not. I inhaled slowly, holding down the ache in my chest. I'm not asking for an apology. I'm simply choosing to stop supporting someone who uses my love to diminish me. She slapped her palm against the armrest. Great. So what, you want to see what happens now? Where are we supposed to live? And what? Are you taking the ring back too? I said nothing. Josie let out a laugh through clenched teeth. Don't you think this is cruel? You're pulling everything just because I didn't perform some public version of being the perfect daughter. Jasper glanced at me, his tone calmer than hers, but colder, more calculating. Mary, this isn't a threat. But you have to understand. Everything from the wedding timeline to the mortgage arrangements is already in motion. If you back out now, it creates a lot of pressure for everyone involved. He leaned forward slightly. Are you sure you want to be the one who ruined everything? I stood up. My voice was soft, but every word landed with weight. If your definition of family support is that it must be delivered on demand, or else it's sabotage, then yes, I'm backing out. Josie's eyes were red-rimmed now. She gritted her teeth. You'll regret this, Mom. I swear you will. I met her gaze, my voice calm, still as a winter lake. I've regretted plenty already, mostly the times I waited too long to say no. She stood abruptly as if I'd slapped her. So you're really taking it all back? I nodded, rising to meet her. Yes. I've made my decision. Jasper placed a hand on her shoulder and leaned in to whisper something. I couldn't hear it, but his body language was clear. He was trying to get her to back off, to stay composed. I had no intention of saying more. In that moment, I no longer needed their understanding. And I finally saw the truth. Some relationships start off imbalanced. And the mistake is thinking they can be held up by just one person forever. They left soon after. When the door shut behind them, I returned to the sofa. The 3 glasses on the coffee table sat untouched. I picked up Josie's and poured the water down the sink. I don't know exactly what time they left. But I could picture it clearly. Josie's face twisted in disbelief as the door clicked shut. After that day, I stopped answering her calls. 3 days later, she showed up at Calvin's office. My ex-husband. Her biological father. I only heard about it later through someone we both knew. Calvin, now on his 4th wife, lived in a sleek, smart home in Silicon Valley, complete with a pool and a reputation for never sending Christmas cards. Josie sat on the leather couch in his office, trying her best to sound light and affectionate. Dad, I'm not trying to interrupt your work. I just really ran into something tough. Calvin was at his desk, flipping through a sales report. I heard you and your mom had a fight, he said flatly. Josie forced a smile. She suddenly said she's not paying for the down payment anymore. I honestly don't know what I did wrong. She's like a different person these past few days. Calvin gave a disinterested, not looking up. Josie clenched her jaw, kept pushing. I'm not asking her for anything new. She promised. Now she's pulling out and Jasper and I are left in a mess. The mortgage paperwork is already halfway done. Calvin finally closed the folder and looked up. Josie, he said slowly, his tone cool, professional, practiced. You know who's been raising you since you were 12. Josie blinked, clearly caught off guard by where this was going. I'm not blaming you, he continued. I'm just stating facts. For the past 20 years, your mother has been the one feeding you, dressing you, covering every bill. Honestly, I haven't done much. Yeah, I send over some money each year, but let's be real. That was symbolic. Not parenting. Josie opened her mouth, but no words came out. Calvin stood and walked to the window. I have a new family now. My wife is even thinking about having a child. I'm not looking to get financially entangled in my last marriage again. Josie's face darkened. You're my dad, she said, almost whispering. He nodded. Legally, yes. But you and I both know we don't really have a relationship, not in any meaningful way. And more importantly, you're not a child anymore. You're asking for someone to take responsibility. That responsibility's already been carried, for over 2 decades, by someone else. Not me. He turned back around, voice steady. You should be talking to her. Josie's fingertips dug hard into the strap of her purse. She already said she won't help me, she muttered, jaw tight. Now she's suddenly all about this self-empowerment crap and dumping everything on me. Calvin raised his hands with a shrug. Still doesn't mean I'm stepping in. He walked back to his desk. And just so we're clear, if you came here to ask for money, let me save us both the time. The answer's no. Not a dime. Josie stood, barely containing her frustration. Thanks, Dad. At least you're faster at shutting me down than Mom. Calvin remained stone-faced, saying nothing more. She turned on her heel and walked out. The door slammed behind her. She didn't cry. But she sat in her car for 10 whole minutes, face slowly unraveling, her expression collapsing inch by inch. Then she dialed Jasper. "She's not helping," she said quietly. "Neither is he." "I figured," Jasper replied calmly on the other end. "Then we go with plan B." Josie said nothing, eyes fixed on the steering wheel. "She's not being rational. This whole pulling back thing? It's emotional. Her money hasn't moved, the house title's still in her name." "Nothing's irreversible," Jasper said, his tone like he was discussing quarterly projections. "We just need to get her to sign something. She's only got you. Everything she has will be yours eventually. We're just accelerating the transfer." Josie finally spoke. "And how exactly do you plan to do that?" "Keep it simple," he replied, sounding pleased with himself. "We reframe it, make her think she's helping you. In reality, she's helping us." There was a beat of silence. Josie's eyes were rimmed red, but her voice had cooled. "Fine. I'll set it up." It was a Thursday evening when Josie called. "Mom, is now a good time to talk?" Her voice was soft, like she was trying to recreate some long-lost intimacy. "I'm home," I replied. "What's going on?" He paused, then sighed. "I feel awkward even asking, but there's been a small hiccup with the house." I sat down, mug in hand. "Go ahead." "The bank flagged our mortgage app. Said we don't have enough assets on file." Her words sped up. "At first they said your down payment would be enough, but since you changed your mind, and we totally respect that, the bank's now requiring a guarantor." I didn't say anything. Josie pressed on. "I get that you probably don't want to be bothered by us lately. I can feel that. But this is just a formality, Mom. Just a signature on a guarantor form. The loan gets approved and we handle it from there. No impact on you. So, you want me to co-sign your mortgage?" I said it plainly. "Yes, but it's just on paper," she rushed to add. "It won't affect your credit, your finances. Nothing. Jasper has a contact prepping the paperwork. It's a standard template. No legal risk." I tapped my fingers along the edge of the cup. Anne Braden's words rang in my head. "Family should never be the weapon you use to hurt yourself." I heard my own voice, calm and deliberate. "Send me the documents. I'll take a look." There was a pause. "You're going to have Braden review them, aren't you?" she asked. "Yes," I said without hesitation. Her tone tightened. "He's a lawyer, not your life coach. You don't need to keep second-guessing me." I didn't respond to that. Only said, "Send them over. I'll read them tonight and let you know tomorrow." As the call ended, I felt it. A quiet alarm going off somewhere inside me. A boundary being tested. I picked up the phone and called Braden. "There's something new," I said. "She's back. She wants me to guarantee the mortgage for the house," I summarized. "She's sending over the paperwork." "Let her," Braden said, his voice instantly cool. "Don't sign anything. Don't promise anything. Send it to me first." "I will," I nodded, already knowing I'd stick to it. I'm done being blind. That night the email came in. Sender, Josie. Attached were 3 documents: loan agreement, guarantor terms, and an additional declaration. At first glance, everything looked official. The formatting was clean. The language standard. But Braden caught it instantly. "Look here." We were on a video call. He zoomed in on the page. "This clause says that if the primary borrower defaults, you, as the guarantor, are liable for the full debt, including any extensions or renewals." He paused, tapping the screen. "But it's buried in a gray footnote, in font so small it's almost invisible." I leaned back in my chair. A chill ran through me. Braden's voice was measured. "This is a classic predatory guarantee clause. I've seen scammers pull this exact move. Your daughter might not even realize how dangerous this is. But your future son-in-law." He let the question hang. "My advice? Stay alert." "I've already started to doubt him," I admitted. There was a beat of silence. "Don't confront them yet," Braden said quietly. "Let them think you're on board. Agree to meet. We need more evidence." I nodded, suddenly aware of how cold my hands had become. "You okay?" Braden noticed my pause. "I'm fine," I said softly. "I just didn't think she'd go this far with him." He didn't rush to answer. Just looked at me through the screen, quiet and steady, offering silence as support. I closed my laptop and walked to the window. Outside, the streetlights flickered faintly, like footlights in a theater with no end in sight. I whispered to myself, I won't let them lead me anymore. And this time, I meant to see it through. They showed up at 3 p.m. that Sunday. Josie had texted earlier. We're bringing some dessert. Jasper wants to talk properly. I replied simply, okay. When I opened the door, the sun was hitting the entryway tiles just right. They came in one after the other. Josie held a box of lemon tarts and wore a smile stretched too tight. We got them from your favorite bakery, she said, handing the box over. A little thank you for meeting with us. I took the box with a nod. Take a seat. I had dressed deliberately for this moment. A soft blue lounge dress, one I rarely wore. The sleeves fell long enough to hide the tiny recorder in my palm. We know things have been tense lately, Jasper began, his voice like a perfectly tuned podcast host. Calm, rehearsed, agreeable. So we're not here to argue. Just to talk. I'm happy to talk, I replied evenly. Go ahead. Josie sat beside him, hand resting on his knee. A practiced pose. First, Jasper said, pulling out a printed document. We've simplified the guarantee terms. This version names you as a temporary credit guarantor and includes an automatic exit clause within 3 years. No long-term financial ties. I took the papers but didn't open them immediately. Instead, I sipped my tea. You've put a lot of work into this, I said. How did it get so professional all of a sudden? Josie jumped in. Jasper talked to his cousin, he works in lending. They have templates for this sort of thing. Legal channels? I asked. Absolutely, Jasper replied smoothly. You're welcome to verify it. I nodded, flipped to the second page. You know I have a lawyer friend, right? Braden, yes, Josie said, smiling too wide. I've always thought he had a little crush on you. I didn't respond. I'll have him review this, I said. Jasper nodded without flinching. Of course. Transparency is key. We've got nothing to hide. Josie leaned in slightly. This isn't just for us, it's about our future. You always said you wanted me to have a stable home. And now it's right in front of us. I closed the file. Are you sure this is what you really want? Josie hesitated. What do you mean? Just asking, I said lightly. Do you think I'm being paranoid? Her mouth opened. But she said nothing. I reached into my bag, pulled out a pen and tapped it gently against the cover of the document. You know, I said, voice soft but deliberate, in all my years I didn't write the most PR pitches or ad copy, I wrote contract reviews. I looked up at them, my expression calm. I've seen the prettiest words hide the ugliest intentions. Jasper smiled, still composed. Well, you won't find any of those intentions in our file. I hope not, I replied, sliding the papers into a folder. I'll have Braden go through it tonight. If everything checks out, I'll sign. Josie exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding her breath. They didn't linger. By just after 4 they were on their way out. I walked them to the door. Josie looked back at me once, her expression layered. Part relief, part watchfulness. When the door closed, I set the folder on the coffee table and picked up my phone. The red dot blinked on the screen. Recording, still running. I saved the file and forwarded it to Braden. Less than a minute later, his reply arrived. This version's more sophisticated. They removed some of the risk language, but hid a critical declaration page in the appendices. You did great. I leaned back into the sofa and closed my eyes. The recording, the verbal promises, the documents, their insistence. All of it was now part of a chain. Not just legal evidence, but proof of how far they were willing to go. Sunlight crept through the curtains, resting quietly on my fingers. These were the same hands that had cooked for her, written tuition checks, signed every card. No. They had just documented her choices. With unwavering clarity. I didn't cry. I didn't feel anger. What I felt was a level of awareness I'd never known before. The next morning, Braden texted. We need to meet in person. That afternoon we sat down together. He didn't say much. He simply handed me a printed summary, several key clauses marked in red. I didn't have many questions. He'd already seen what I needed to see. The rest I had to confront myself. Josie called soon after. Her voice carried more urgency this time. Mom, did you go through the papers? Are you ready to sign? We're out of time. I said only, come by tomorrow. 3 o'clock. We'll talk in person. She hesitated. Then, fine. At exactly 3 the next afternoon, the doorbell rang. Josie and Jasper walked in. No desserts this time. No friendly masks. Josie hadn't even bothered with full makeup, just a few hasty strokes near her eyes. She looked like someone who hadn't slept. They sat down on the couch. I placed Braden's marked-up document in the center of the coffee table. I've read it, I said. Josie's expression twitched. She tried to hold her composure. So, when do you plan to sign? I looked at her straight and steady. I'm not signing. Her face fell instantly. Jasper raised an eyebrow, leaning back in his seat. Mary, I don't understand. We had this all worked out. This is just a formal guarantee. Then why the buried clauses? I interrupted, my tone even. Why the financial access language hidden in the fine print? My words dropped one by one, solid and final. Josie opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. You know what's in that file, Josie. Better than I do. She faltered, then quickly shifted into a wounded tone. You don't trust me, Mom? I said nothing. Her voice sharpened. You're saying I lied to you? That asking my mother for help is the same as manipulating her? I met her eyes. Measured calm. If you knew that signing this could put all my assets at risk, then yes, that's exactly what it is. Josie shot up from the couch. Her eyes shimmered. You have no idea what you're doing. You're destroying what little trust we have left. Jasper finally spoke, his voice still pretending to be calm. I think this conversation has reached its end. If you don't want to cooperate, fine. But don't treat us like criminals. I slowly opened a drawer and pulled out a printed transcript and a small voice recorder. This is a complete recording and transcription of everything you said during your last visit, I said, placing them on the table. Braden has already filed a record. Josie's eyes locked on the recorder. Her lips began to tremble. You recorded us? She asked, her voice tightening. You recorded me? Of course, I said, steady as stone. You came into my home with a contract trap. Did you really think I'd just sign like I used to and stay quiet? Josie looked down, biting her lip. Her fingernails dug into the flesh of her palm. Jasper stood up, finally showing his irritation. Is this supposed to be a threat? No, I said, standing with him, my posture unwavering. This is me protecting myself. I looked down at them both. You can go now. Next time we'll meet in a lawyer's office. Josie practically shouted, You're really just giving up on me like this? You think I'd hurt you? What, am I your dog now? Just something you fed and raised and now want to put down? I inhaled deeply, keeping my tone calm. You're not a dog. You're my daughter. But you're also an adult. And adults are responsible for their choices. Her eyes glistened. Her lips trembled again, but this time she said nothing. She turned and walked out so quickly it looked like she was running from something. Jasper didn't follow immediately. He stood at the door, jaw tight. Then he said coldly, We have legal counsel too. Are you really ready to drag this to court? I met his stare. I'm ready. The door closed. Silence filled the house. I sat back down on the couch and took a deep breath. I wasn't waiting for apologies anymore. I wasn't trying to end this gracefully. I was drawing a line. For the first time in my life, a line that wasn't about her, but about me. Sometimes the thing you have to let go of isn't the child. It's the version of yourself that keeps forgiving them. I sat in Braden's office as he sorted the documents into a thick legal file. The tea I'd brought him had long gone cold. His screen was still open, the audio file from my conversation with Josie paused at 27 minutes and 12 seconds. This part is key, Braden said, removing his glasses and tapping the transcript with his pen. She admits the document was meant for your signature, and when you raised concerns she tried to override you by invoking family trust. That shows intent to defraud. I nodded silently. Are you really prepared? He asked. This time there was less of his usual detachment, more caution in his voice. Yes. Mary, this isn't a family disagreement anymore. Once we submit the fraud claim, this becomes a formal legal case. Your daughter will be named as one of the defendants. I looked up and answered evenly. Do you think she holds no responsibility? He paused, then shook his head. She absolutely does. But I want you to understand, this won't stay private. Then let it be public. He nodded, sealing the envelope with the preliminary notice of fraudulent intent. I'll send this to the DA's office tonight. They'll notify the opposing counsel tomorrow. Within 3 days they'll have to respond, either accept pretrial mediation or prepare to defend in court. I closed my eyes for a moment. Thank you, Braden. He slid his glasses back on, tone reverting to the clipped professionalism I knew. Don't thank me. They forced your hand. Rain had started falling by the time I drove home. I didn't rush inside. I stayed in the car just watching the raindrops trail down the windshield. My phone lit up. From Josie. Subject: we need to talk before you do something stupid. The message read: I don't know what you think you're doing, but if you believe you can control me like this, you're wrong. I looked at it, then tapped delete. A second email arrived moments later. This one was different. Contradictory. Mom, please. Can we just talk once more? I don't want things to end like this. I didn't respond. That night, for the first time in years, I slept a full 7 hours. The next morning, Braden called. We received a response from opposing counsel. Jasper's retained a civil contract firm. Josie hasn't filed a power of attorney yet. Avoiding it? I asked. Or she's starting to realize just how badly her fiancé has played her. I nodded slowly. When do we begin the first round of submissions? Tonight, Braden said. I'll file the full package with the court. Your recordings, the call transcripts, contract comparison sheets, and the certified documents from the bank. I held the phone, unable to speak for a moment. Braden paused, then softened. You've done well, Mary. Not because you're trying to win, because this time you finally stood up for yourself. I exhaled, staring at the light spilling across the kitchen table, slowly warming the edge of my placemat. It's not standing up, I said quietly. It's learning when it's time to turn around. The courthouse hallway was as cold as ever, lights pale and clinical, like droplets dripping from the ceiling. I walked into the courtroom beside Braden. He wore a dark gray suit, sharp and steady, moving like a man who'd played this board before. Nothing rushed, every step deliberate. Josie and Jasper were already seated at the defense table. She wore a muted dress, carefully chosen, her makeup light, her jaw tight. Jasper was in a crisp suit, posture relaxed on the surface, but too still underneath. His eyes were doing what he always did, trying to control the room. I didn't acknowledge them. I sat beside the witness stand, hands clasped, eyes on the neatly stacked exhibits in front of me. 10 minutes before the hearing began, Josie glanced back at me. Her expression was a tangle: guilt, fear, and above all, confusion. She still didn't fully grasp how it had come to this. Then the judge entered. Braden rose first. Your Honor, my client, Mary Carter, is submitting formal evidence alleging that the defendant, Jasper Lancaster, orchestrated and attempted to induce Mrs. Carter into co-signing a high-risk loan guarantee, despite no intention of securing a legitimate loan, but instead to offload default liability onto her. The judge nodded. Braden walked to the bench, laying down the exhibits. This contract, Your Honor, features a misleading structure. The first 2 pages omit key guarantor responsibilities, the third hides a financial authorization clause in gray text, and the final page attaches a digital signature template not consented to by my client. A hush fell over the courtroom. I saw Jasper's attorney stiffen. Jasper himself subtly turned toward Josie with a glance that held more blame than surprise. Braden continued, unshaken. Additionally, the defendant submitted multiple loan simulation documents to the bank, including unsigned authorization forms that initiated underwriting processes. A severe breach of financial integrity and potential document falsification. He placed a thick stack of printed pages on the table. We also request the court to admit this. An audio recording from a meeting at Mrs. Carter's residence. The room filled with my own voice. Josie, just sign it for me, Mom. It's nothing. Jasper, don't overread it. It's just paperwork. That last line, don't overread it, echoed through the courtroom like a hammer strike. The judge turned to Jasper. Mr. Lancaster, were you aware of and did you instruct the preparation of this document? Jasper opened his mouth, but his lawyer immediately stood, pressing a hand to his shoulder. Your Honor, we request a brief 5-minute recess. The judge nodded. When court resumed 5 minutes later, Jasper looked pale. His gaze had lost all pretense. His lawyer stood and addressed the bench. We are requesting to enter into plea negotiations. Mr. Lancaster is prepared to cooperate with the investigation. Braden stood. We accept the premise of negotiation, Your Honor. However, we ask the court to make clear, this was not a misunderstanding. This was a premeditated, repeated pattern of fraud. We will be presenting additional evidence, showing Mr. Lancaster engaged in similar financial manipulations in at least 2 previous relationships, where he attempted to use his partner's identities to apply for personal loans. The words landed like a blow. Josie turned ghost pale. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. She sat there, eyes fixed on her lap, fingers clutching the edge of her dress. Not once did she look at Jasper again. Braden's voice softened. As for Josie Lancaster, he said, while she did participate in presenting the documents, the recordings and emails show she was not fully aware of the contract's legal implications. Many key decisions were initiated and driven by Mr. Lancaster. Her degree of responsibility should be assessed with caution. The judge nodded silently. I looked at Josie. She finally raised her head, her eyes no longer sharp with defiance, but lost like someone waking from a long, self-authored dream. And in that moment I felt no victory. What I felt was a sudden, painful clarity. Some mistakes are born from human blindness. But some wounds, they come from conscious choices, and no amount of awakening can undo them. 3 weeks after the hearing, the official court ruling arrived. Jasper was found guilty on 3 counts. Attempted financial fraud, falsification of documents, and intent to unlawfully transfer property. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison. No probation. Josie was designated a secondary participant. She was fined, ordered to complete 12 months of financial counseling, and signed a formal statement relinquishing any claims to the property. I sat at the dining table, the judgment papers in my hand. The sun was catching the woven edge of the placemat beside me. Everything looked the same, but the house felt different. I didn't put the ring box back in the cupboard this time. I left it in the very bottom of my safe, tucked under Braden's meticulously organized legal documents. It was still there, but no longer waiting for someone, just quietly existing, as a piece of family history that belonged to me. That evening, just as I poured tea, the doorbell rang. It was Josie. She wore a simple denim jacket, her hair pulled back in a low ponytail. No makeup, no forced expressions, no gifts. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I nodded and stepped aside. We sat on opposite ends of the living room couch, a blank coffee table between us. She was silent for a long time, then finally said, "I'm not here to argue. I know. I'm not here to ask for anything either." Her voice cracked. I need to know. Do you still love me?" I looked into her eyes. Those same eyes that once stared up at me while drawing rainbows on the back of my hand. Now filled with pain, confusion, and something else. A flicker of shame. "I will always love you, Josie," I said. "But I won't keep cleaning up after you. That's not love." She bit her lip, eyes watering. "When you shut me out like that, I thought you were cutting me off for good." "I wasn't cutting you off," I said gently. "I was handing you back to yourself. Not as a child to protect, but as a woman who needs to stand on her own." She dropped her gaze, fingers rubbing at the denim on her knee. "I get confused sometimes," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "You used to never say no to me. I thought that's just what you do." Jasper, he was so persuasive. He kept saying, "Your mom won't fight you on this." And I believed him. I didn't excuse her. I didn't scold her. I just sat and let her speak. "I know I hurt you," she finally said. "I'm sorry, Mom. Really, truly sorry." Her tears fell, not wild or explosive, but quiet like a tide finally receding. I stood, moved to her side, and gently held her hand. "You're not a bad person," I said, "but you do have to learn the difference between love and taking." She nodded slowly, then hesitantly. Would you ever consider giving me the ring again?" I paused, then said, "It's still here, but it'll wait until you're ready to carry what it means." That made her cry harder. Not out of guilt, but release. Like she'd set down a weight she didn't even know she'd been carrying. She didn't stay long, just sat with me like a daughter. Had some tea, then left. As the door closed behind her, I felt no ache, only lightness. Before she left, she'd whispered, "The engagement's off." I told him it's over. And for the first time in decades, I felt free. Not from her, but from the version of myself who only lived for her. A few months later, I joined Braden's community legal group, helping seniors understand their financial rights. I didn't talk about emotion. I talked about structure, boundaries, safety. I also started volunteering twice a week at the downtown library, helping catalog loans, restocking shelves. Life didn't change with fireworks. It just got quieter. And more mine. One day I got a postcard in the mail. From Josie. It was a photo taken during a financial literacy seminar. On the back in her handwriting it said, "I'm learning. If you're still watching, I want you to know." I slipped the card into a novel I'd never finished. I don't know if she'll become the woman I always hoped she'd be. But I do know this. I'm no longer the mother who waits, who begs, who erases herself for love. I walked into my bedroom, unlocked the safe, and took out the ring box. It was still there. I smiled and closed it gently. Some things aren't meant to be given away. Just because you love someone, they should be kept. Until you love yourself enough to choose whether or not to give them at all.